Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we are going to talk about season 2, episode 2 of Psych. So we are going to start off today by giving a little bit of an official Psych Fanatics a Facebook group shout out. Which, by the way, we've been seeing some little hints that the admin for that group has been dropping about a possible Psych Fanaticon in 2022. We'll keep you guys posted as we get more information about that.
And we also, big news for us, launched our YouTube channel. We started the YouTube channel. We were waiting till season 2 started officially. So this is a week behind. But we, put a lot of work into getting it up and getting the entire season 1, including the interview with Sage, up and live on there for your viewing pleasure. And if you know people who maybe would be interested in the podcast, but only like viewing it through YouTube or don't like downloading other apps just for podcasts, that is the way to go. Send them over there, send them a link to it. I have a playlist on there that's in order every episode. We do only have video for the Sage interview. And we will continue to mostly do audio only. However, we did have some custom animations made just for the YouTube video, and we love them.
And you may be
And
surprised at little
Mhm.
changes in it.
Yes, where will be incremental changes to the animation that plays
Right.
on there. So there's just little things, little nuggets, little Easter eggs in there.
Yeah.
But
It's
we are
adorable.
very excited about it, and
Yes,
yeah,
we
I'm
are.
super excited about it.
Yes, we are. So check us out on there.
Mhm.
We
And
were
subscribe.
yes, definitely subscribe. We were so happy to drop that interview with Sage. That was really, really awesome. And just check it out wherever you can, because it was a great interview. I mean, it was a good he was really generous with his time. It was like an hour and 20 minutes
Yeah,
of
it
talk
was a
time
good
with
interview.
him and got a lot of great insider information. So if you haven't checked it out yet, do that.
Yeah, even after we stopped recording, I think we talked for another like 10 minutes about some
Yeah.
other things. But yeah, it was a great guy. And honestly, after getting to know him a little bit and talking to him for a little bit, I appreciate his scenes as McNabb even more. Like even in this
Yeah,
episode we're going to talk about today, there was
exactly.
several little tidbits with McNabb, and I
Mhm.
just enjoyed it even more, like knowing that he actually is a really nice guy.
I
So
look forward to
looking
his
forward to it.
scenes.
Hmm.
Yeah, like
Oh
in
yeah.
each episode, I'm looking for him now. I'm like, "Where's McNabb?"
Hmm.
So yeah, I get what you're saying. It was really cool to talk to him and kind of relate that way. It was awesome.
Hmm. Yeah,
Love it.
that was cool. So yes, a big shout out to him. Thanks for coming on the show. Also with the Facebook thing, I did want to mention that we are going to be posting there regularly from now on. So every week, whenever we drop a new episode, it's going to be up on Facebook as well for season 2. So it's not just season 1. One other thing we did want to go over is we got some more fan emails. Sometimes we'll
Yay!
just respond to them whenever people post comments or questions, and sometimes we'll read them on the air. So this one we got was a longer one. All right, so we got one here from Jeffrey, and here it is. My name is Jeffrey, and I'm a longtime fan of Psych. I found the series when it was in season 5, so I came into it pretty late, but I was glad I did. I fell in love with the dynamic between Gus and Sean, exactly how best friends should act, or at least that's how we all wish our closest friends would be like. I recently found this podcast and I think it's great. I listened to it during my commute to work for the past 3 days and I'm loving it. I get weird looks on the metro every time I laugh at all the hijinks Sean and Gus get into that you guys remind me about. I'm on season 1, episode 11 of the podcast, but going for another rewatch of Psych just because I haven't seen it for a couple months. I wish you both the best in your podcast and I look forward to future episodes and other shows you decide to commentate on. Little
Cool.
tidbits or a quirk that bothered him. In episode 1, Sean says pro bono, but in Cloudy with a Chance of Murder, he has no idea what it means. Also, in Weekend Warriors, Sean says for your edification to Gus when he was playing golf in the tent, but I remember in a later season he makes fun of Lassie for saying edification, like he doesn't know what it means. What do you guys think about that? Just seems to prove that his character is getting more and more silly every season or something. So, I do have a couple things to say this.
Well, first of all, good eye, Jeffrey.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
thank you for listening.
Yeah, thanks for listening. Thanks for messaging in. definitely thanks for listening and checking out the podcast. I kind of think that that's a good way to think about the show here and what its purpose is to remind people of different things that happen that make them want to go back and rewatch the episodes after they listen to the
Yeah,
podcast and see what we're talking about or check it out and see if they think the same thing as us whenever we have weird theories, that kind of deal. So I'm glad that that's working and that makes people want to go and watch the show some more.
I
uh
love that too. That's what
mhm,
it made me think of, is like, that's exactly what we were trying to do, is
yeah.
get people to watch it again.
hmm
Yeah.
and message in with their theories or things that they find that are interesting.
Yes.
And then when it comes to this, I definitely agree with you on the episode one pro bono one. Um,
Mhm.
I mean, that's just part of him being silly, I think. But in the Weekend Warrior one, if I remember, I think I actually brought this up in the podcast we did. Um, it starts out with, I think Lassie says edification, and Sean like pretends like not to understand what it is, but then he later uses it like sarcastically in that same episode. So I think that's what happened there. I don't remember exactly. I would have to go back and listen to be sure. But I think that you're thinking about the same episode. Unless he does it
I
again
don't
in the
know.
future. But I don't
Maybe
think
that
I've
you
heard that
do.
since for season one.
I gotta say, I might be going with Jeffrey here, because that's quite an eye. I mean, he's got an eye for detail there. Maybe we can, well, I don't know. That I'm thinking he might be right. We're gonna see. We'll keep watching and we'll keep you posted, Jeffrey, but keep listening. We love that.
All right. So now we're going to get to the stats for this episode. Barb, what do you got?
This episode is titled 65 Million Years Off. It originally aired on July 20th, 2007. It was written by Steve Franks, Andy Berman, and our friend Anupam Nigam, and it was directed by Tim Matheson.
We are really familiar with this group of writers at this point. Andy was on the show in several episodes, as well as Anupam being a staff writer on the show.
Tim Matheson is back after directing He Loves Me, He Loves Me Not, He Loves Me, Oops, He's Dead in season 1. And he directed, we kind of covered this last time. He directed many USA shows: Burn Notice, Greek, White Collar, Covert Affairs, Suits. Also did some Criminal Minds episodes and a lot of other episodic TV. He is also an actor, a really good actor, actually. He was on Heart of Dixie and is in Virgin River, both of which he starred in as, and he also played a doctor on both of them. Virgin River is still on currently on Netflix. And a little bit of trivia here is that the cabin that they use on every single episode of Virgin River, the main character lives in it, was also used on episodes of Psych as well.
Wait,
It's in Vancouver.
cabin? Do you know what episode is used on?
I don't remember. I want to say it might be in one of your favorite episodes, the one about the Sasquatch.
Oh,
I
okay.
believe it was used
Well,
in
there's a
that
couple
one,
instances
or
of
possibly the one with
the
Sean's
spies.
uncle.
Oh, okay, I was thinking about that one too when they're tied
Yeah,
to the chairs.
there's several. When we see
Mhm.
them, I'll tell you if it's the cabin, because I do love Virgin River. I do watch
Okay.
that
Oh,
show.
okay, you'll
So
recognize it.
I'll
Okay.
tell you when we
Cool.
see it. Like, it'll come back to me. But yeah, so I thought that was a cool piece of trivia, that he was sort of connected in a couple ways.
Cool.
Yeah,
And do you want to give us our synopsis for this week's episode?
I do. Okay. Lassie is on a case closing streak, and Sean is feeling a bit left out since they have not needed him at the station in over a month. When a dead guy is found at a marina, Sean poses the possibility of a dinosaur bite being responsible. Even though no one believes him, he and Gus set out to prove them wrong and end up solving more than one case in the process.
All right. Pretty clear.
Yeah.
Let's get into the breakdown. So, Barb, I see you have the first one here. All right. So, how does this episode open? Let's go.
So this episode starts. I'm already laughing, so that's a good indicator of how this episode's going to go. This episode starts with a flashback of little Burton Guster. He's walking down the school hallway wearing an enormous dinosaur head.
Like paper mache.
that he has made as a school project. He is very proud of it. It is built to scale, and it took him 3 months to make. We It was so cute. Okay, so we quickly find out that Sean did his project
If you
in
want to
an
call it that.
well, yeah, he duct taped a dinosaur to a remote control car, but he said he took an hour to do his the night before it was due.
Hmm.
And poor Gus, because everyone loved the fact that Sean could operate this car, and everyone was all excited about it because it moved. He he was like outshone by Sean, and Sean didn't put the work in, and it was a little aggravating to little Gus. But him walking
Hmm.
down the hallway with the dinosaur, it was so cute. It was bigger than he was. It was just adorable.
Well, yeah, he was wearing it.
Yeah, I mean, I
I'm
love it.
curious as to where they got that from. Like, I'm curious, where did they get that on set? Did they have it made? Was it just sitting around? It feels like a very specific
This
type of prop. So I have
is
that
a
on our
good
questions.
interview question.
Yep, I have it listed already on there. Hmm.
Yes, we are trying to schedule some more interviews, so we hopefully will be able to ask some people this stuff.
Yeah.
Oh my
All
gosh.
right. So I also thought that that was a good one. But a little bit later, we're back in real time, and we find out that Lassie, this is like a minute in, Lassie is on a hot streak at work. I do think that there's a possible inconsistency here, although it does get a little fixed. Um, so Lassie has gotten like 8 confessions, and he's closed the cases within 2 weeks. Now, you know, so Jules says 7, then McNabb jumps in and says 8. And then, but later on, like a few minutes later out in the hall, we see them on the actual board. Like we see the board where they're all written down, and there's 9 closed cases on there. Now, I do actually find out that at 2 minutes and 22 seconds, he does correct it. McNabb does, and he says, "Oh, I forgot, it was 9." But at first I thought that was an inconsistency because I paused it to
Mm.
count all the closed cases on there, and one of them was for public indecency or indecent exposure. So I thought
Oh,
Lassiter probably had a good time with that. He probably tased him.
well, yeah, he probably did because he would like to do that. Um, at 2 minutes, Jules is telling Sean that they have not needed his help, and that's why he hasn't been called in like a month.
Hmm.
Um, and she's just saying that, and he's like, "Can you throw in a butt? Can you?" He says, "Can you throw a butt in there and add something about a dream in there where you and I get thrown out of a mattress showroom?"
I knew you were gonna pull that one out. I knew it. I knew it. Anytime they kind of flirt or Sean gets cute with her. Hmm.
I loved that. He was
Hmm.
I put in my note, wow, he was really going for it.
Yeah,
Like it
very
was not
forward.
he was not hiding anything.
Hmm.
But then I loved how he called her out for misusing the word literally. When
Yeah.
she says, Lassie is literally on fire. He said, what kind of fire? Michael Jackson in the Pepsi commercial on fire or fire for misusing the word literally? It
Hmm.
was good. It was
Yeah.
good.
I did like that. At 2 minutes and 40 seconds, Lassiter gets a little bit cocky with Sean because this is after Sean is trying to get a case and he's kind of following Jules around, like, bummed out that he's not needed around here. And Lassiter comes in, he gets cocky, and he ends up giving Sean an invite to their this fresh case that they just got. And he says, come on, we'll show you how real cops do it. And Sean has no comeback to that as Lassiter turns around and walks away. Jules notices it, and she says, "Come on, Gus, no, or come on, Sean, no comeback, really?" Buzz notices it walking by,
Yes, sweet
and
little Buzz
he says,
McNabb.
and he says, "Sean, are you still doing that psychic thing? Like, because he hasn't seen
Oh,
him around here for a month."
I like how he's that psychic thing.
Hmm. It was a genuine question.
Yeah. Sweet little Buzz McNabb. Okay, so we are at 3:55. This is kind of the beginning of the case. They're at the marina, and when Sean is standing there with Lassie and Jules and everybody, he kind of steals the notes about the case that Lassiter had, and notices that there are bite mark radius notes there, just as Gus arrives. So they're clearly Gus has left work. He's like excited to be back on a case too. And they, yeah, anyway, they start looking at what this could be. And
Mhm.
Gus is
Yeah.
like, this can't be what you're thinking that it is. And Sean goes, Gus, don't be a giant snapping turtle. Don't be.
Yeah, I like it. It got introduced in the last episode, I believe. The
Mm-hmm.
the Gus don't be Gus. So I like that we got one of those, and that one's a funny one. At 4 minutes and 37 seconds, the body washes up from the ocean with weird puncture marks on it. Now this is fresh off of Lassie's like streak, so he's wanting to keep the streak going as you would. And Lassie is stumped with this one. The body washes up and it's got these weird puncture marks along the stomach that are kind of in a line. And he's got some guesses, but he has to look into it more. But Sean has a very clear idea of what this is, and he tries to leverage that to get on the case.
Oh yeah, he is drawing. I love when he does this. I love it. He gets so exhausted from it every time, and it's just fun to watch him do. So he's drawing, and some of Lassie's guesses, a giant crab trap.
A whale, an industrial crab trap, and he does a thing with his hands like he's like it's a claw.
It was so good.
And
It
then
was
he
so
actually
good.
puts himself between Vic and Sean so that, Sean as if he's like trying to like not let her hear him or something.
He
I thought that was kind of
cannot.
good.
He cannot stand it. He does not want to let Sean say something before he guesses right. It's so
Right. He
funny.
doesn't want Sean to break his streak. And that's why I thought
Right.
it was interesting that he even invited him to begin with. Like he had some hardcore confidence there.
Well, in
Mhm.
his defense, how could he have possibly known that it would be something so obscure?
Yeah.
I
Yep.
mean, he's probably thinking there'll be a stab wound or a gunshot wound. This will be another open and shut, like, easy for
That's true. He
him.
just took an unnecessary risk there.
Right,
That's
right. He
but
did not factor in dinosaur.
right,
I,
exactly.
you know, yeah.
But
So it.
Sean draws a picture of the
Mhm.
murderer, and he, tries to leverage that with the chief to get on the case, and he shows them his drawing, and it's like a T-Rex head. And the chief, well, actually, not even just the chief, nobody's having it. Even Gus is like
Yeah,
embarrassed. So
yeah. They all walk away. All of
mhm,
them just walk
just
away
ignore
from
him.
him.
Hmm.
No one believes. No one believes. We're back at the psych office at 7 minutes and 5 seconds. Gus is clearly not happy.
Hmm.
And I love this exchange between the two of them because this is where Sean says, you're going to go back to your little air quotes. He uses air quotes. Side job.
No, no,
He's
no, no.
like,
He says
side
you're the
job?
one spending all your time at your little side project. That's what the quote is. And Gus is like, you mean my real job, soon to be my only job?
Like the job that pays for all of this? So funny. I
It reminds me of like it's I don't even know what episode it is in the future, but he's like, I claimed you on my taxes, Sean. Like Gus really does like support both of
He
them,
does. He does.
especially in times like this when they hasn't been working, when like they
Yeah.
don't have cases.
But it makes me wonder all the time, and this goes back to the pilot when we were talking about this. Where does Sean live?
Hmm.
Like, how does he live anywhere? I really, really wish that they had explained that a little bit. I
Well,
mean, it's some kind of answer. Does he, well, not that Henry would have let him come live with him, but like live with his dad? Does he live with Gus?
seems like
How
a
is he
couch
affording an
surface. Oh, he
apartment?
does not live with Gus. We
Well,
know
that's
he
what I'm
doesn't live with Gus.
right,
It
but that's
seems
what
like
I'm
he couch
saying.
surface. He couch
Couch
surfs.
surfs. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
And it seems like it.
but
I
with
mean, we
who?
do
His only
see.
friend his
Well,
only
we do
friend is
see.
Gus.
Hold on, we do see in some other episodes, or in the future that like he is in like that he sleeps in like a laundromat. Like he essentially rents it out at a cheap price, and he just lives there. Like he just works out deals with people and like a band. I don't know. I don't know. I think that's part of the
I
mysteriousness of
really
Sean is
want
where does
more
he go?
information, but it's interesting to me that they show Lassie's home, and they show Henry's home,
See,
and they
I'm
show
different. I
they
I'm
wait,
fine with
they've
this
even
for some
hold
reason.
on. They've even shown Chief Vic's home. They
Yeah.
they have showed Buzz McNabb's home. We see where everyone else lives except Sean.
it's the part of the mysterious charm. I don't know.
I
For
don't know.
some reason, I mean, you would think that I would have a problem with that, but I, I
I
just don't
I
mind it.
I am actually surprised that you don't have a
I
problem
am
with
too.
that.
It's just not nagging at me. I'm okay with it.
Clearly, you're good.
hmm
Oh my gosh, that's so
But
funny. Okay.
shortly after that,
Mhm.
we're at 7 minutes 33 seconds. Sean was sure about the dino because he had the same scars, and he has a photo to back it up. And it's this old like
Yes.
what is I can't
A
even remember what it's called.
Polaroid?
A
It's a
Polaroid photo
Polaroid?
of him inside the mouth of a dinosaur at the at like a museum or something. He's at the
That he
museum,
worked
he
at for a
jumped into the
weekend.
mouth, and then he had someone take the picture. Now, they do zoom in on the picture, and I did post it here, Barb. And you
Okay.
can look at it. It's very clearly photoshopped. Like it's so clearly photoshopped, but in the episode, but that is a really funny screensaver. He's like, it was totally worth it though. The best screensaver ever.
That's
hmm
funny.
But he did mention that the bite wounds on his stomach or the bruises on his stomach matched what he saw on the body, which is why he jumped to that conclusion.
I like that he said that that's what got him fired after a full weekend. He
hmm
worked there for a weekend. So, okay, now we are at the morgue.
Well, hold on. I
Mhm.
do like I did also notice that
Okay.
Gus was annoyed with after he looked at the photo, was shocked, and then he was annoyed. Like he kind of rolled his eyes whenever he saw that that's what Gus did or that Sean did. Like it embarrassed him or something. Like he tainted
Like, you don't
the
do that,
museum.
Sean.
Right, like, I don't know,
Right.
it's almost like the how Gus is with the like, the space place,
Uh-huh.
the
He's
wow.
protective of it.
Right, like, he's like, "What are you doing? You don't do that. That's so
Right.
rude." Like, yeah, I thought that was
He
funny that
takes
he rolled his
he
eyes at him.
takes those things so seriously. Like,
Mhm.
there's etiquette as
Yes,
far as he's
exactly.
concerned. There's etiquette about it.
Mhm.
Okay, so this is one of my favorite scenes of this episode. So they're at the morgue, and can I just say, for those of you who have watched the show all the way through, later there is a character called Woody who plays the medical examiner, and all I could think in this scene was how much I wish Woody had been there for this episode, because his character would have loved this.
Mhm.
He would have loved it. So we're at the morgue. There's Chief Vic and Lassie and Juliet, and they are standing around this body with the medical examiner who's giving them the rundown of what he has found. And there's outside of the window of the room that they're in,
Yeah,
you
Juliet spots it,
see
yeah.
you see this dinosaur head from Gus's school project bouncing up and down, going by and then turning around and going back again, and then the other cops open up the door for him. He comes in and opens up the mouth of the dinosaur.
And he's like, "Stand back. Let me get a check on the bite radius here."
I loved that scene. He just did it like he had to go. That's why he borrowed his dad's truck. He went to Gus's house and got the thing from his
Yeah, it
mom.
took work.
He really all to bring that stupid dinosaur head to the morgue. It was
Yeah,
great.
it's like a 20-year-old paper
Yeah.
mache class project from Gus.
And when he did bring it in, they just weren't having it. They would
Yeah, so yeah, this is
they
one
weren't
thing I
having
noted.
it.
Yeah, so we're 9 minutes 50 seconds in, and the chief really chews him out here,
Yeah.
which I thought was really weird. Like she hasn't seen him for around a month, and then she thinks that like he's being like stranger than normal. And I don't know, I just don't buy that. I thought that was really weird because that's kind of a theme of this episode, at least in the beginning
Mhm.
part, before they find out who the victim
Yeah.
is everybody like thinks that Sean is like weird or
Well,
like being weird or extra unusual.
it's because I they haven't needed him. Like, they've been doing fine on their own.
Right,
So
but it's
they're
only been a
thinking we
month. Did
can
you
keep
forget him?
being fine. Well, I mean, maybe. Maybe they're just thinking, "All right, we're good. We don't need you, Mr.
I
Spencer."
don't know, maybe. I just thought it was weird.
Yeah. I
It put
mean,
a weird
usually
spin on the episode.
usually, Jules at least puts a little bit of stock into what he says, and
Mhm.
she wasn't even doing that here. But
Yeah.
again, in their defense, dinosaur? I
Yeah.
mean, this is incredibly unlikely. This is a leap for sure.
Hmm.
Which, that's what she tells him.
But yeah, in the
So,
aspect of or in the idea that you're talking about missing Woody,
mhm,
comparing Woody and the interactions with the morgue in the
yeah,
future versus now, yeah, this guy was super boring. This
yeah,
mortician was super boring compared to uh
yeah. Bring on
Woodrow.
Kurt Fuller,
Hmm.
please, please.
Yeah, so I will definitely give you that there. I didn't even think about comparing them, but comparing them,
Mhm.
no question, it's much less entertaining without Woody in it.
It's like a snooze. He's
But
listing off what he
they
found,
did
and you
say
want to fall asleep.
yes, yeah, but we
It's
do
like, yeah.
learn for the episode, we do learn that the victim fell from a height onto the object that left the puncture wounds, and
Mhm.
that was before he fell into the water. So we are getting some more clues as to making sense of what happened.
Next, we go to Henry's house.
Hmm.
So Sean shows up at Henry's house. This is almost 11 minutes in, and he discovers that Gus is there. He's sitting there eating a cupcake, just happy as he can be. And there is a strange guy there. So apparently, Chief Vic has thought that Sean has kind of lost it, and she has sent the department's psychologist to Henry's house to assess Sean
To
and
have an
talk to him a
intervention,
little bit. Right.
they call
With
it
the
an intervention.
intervention. Yeah. Yeah. And so Gus cracks me up here because he literally is just sitting there eating a cupcake. He's like, I'm going to just enjoy this. This ought to be good. And very quickly, Sean turns it around and convinces this psychologist that he is psychic, and he buys the whole thing. Henry's so frustrated. And next thing you know, in walk the chief and Lassie, and they reveal that the victim was not, he was a paleontologist.
And then Sean has no idea what that is.
Yeah,
He
no.
looks so confused, and he looks over to Gus, and it's kind of funny because he just quietly looks over to Gus. He doesn't even ask. He just looks at him,
Uh-huh. Gus
confused, and
knows.
he's like, "It's Dinosaur Hunter."
Yeah, Gus knows. Gus
And he's
knows
like,
that he won't know
"As
that one.
expected."
Uh-huh.
Hmm.
Uh-huh.
And I should also mention that at 10 minutes 33 seconds, if you pause it, inside the kitchen, right around the corner of like the hallway or the doorway, is a pineapple. That is our hidden pineapple for the episode. I did not find this one initially. I had to go back and really scour it after looking it up.
Okay. Yeah,
This
I
was a
didn't even
very well
find it.
hidden one.
I didn't even find it at all. So good
Mhm.
on you.
I have a picture of it in the chat if you'd like. But
Okay.
yeah, so I didn't find this one. I actually did have to go look it up, figure out where it was, and then go back and like kind of skim through this scene to figure out where it
Wow.
was. So,
Yeah, I couldn't
yep.
find it. I will also add that this is the first of 3 crazy shirts that Henry wears in this episode.
Hmm.
We got a brown floral going on here right now
Yep.
at the house. So that's the first of 3. Um,
There was some other things I would want to notate here.
oh, okay. All
Is
right.
so in the same situation as what we were talking about with Chief Vic being extra hard on Sean, Henry is extra hard on Sean in this episode. And again, it puts like this really negative vibe on the episode, at least in this beginning part, where Henry is agreeing with Chief Vic and the psychologist here, saying that like Sean is being weird. And he even at one point says, like, I'm not even sure if he's not on drugs. Like it gets really dark. I don't know. It's a
That's
very
where he says he
weird.
has delusions of magical
Oh
powers.
yeah, delusions and magic powers. Henry
Yeah.
knows that he's not a real psychic. He doesn't and
Yeah,
knows that
but
he doesn't think he's a real psychic. He's really like selling him down.
okay, but do you think that's why he's doing this? Because he wants the whole farce to be over. Henry doesn't like that Sean's lying to
Maybe, but
everybody.
I
He
still think it's
doesn't
cool to
want
put him
that.
in this weird like situation where he's like
Well,
putting him on the spot like this.
I don't know. Sean's just not having a good run, I
Hmm.
think, and everybody is sort of coming down on him. Even Gus not believing him right away and
Yeah,
all that. But I think once the chief revealed that it was a paleontologist that was killed, now it's like,
yeah,
all right,
yeah.
I'm
Now it
on.
gets into a
I'm on
better
board.
space, but like
Yeah,
before, this was just a rough 10 minutes.
it was.
But
It was. You
in
felt
this.
bad for Sean.
Mhm. But in this same scene at 11:32, whenever Sean tells Gus that he got his dinosaur head from his parents' house, we find out that he also got pictures from his mom that document his Terrence Trent D'Arby phase. I had to go and look this up. I had no idea what it was,
Oh,
but we'll hit
singer.
that up in the 80. We'll look that up for later on in the 80s reference.
Yeah.
But I did get some documentation on that.
Good.
And Henry and the shrink, because whenever he says that out loud, Gus looks over to Henry and the shrink, and they like look away, embarrassed that they even heard it for him. I thought that was a funny detail. Also, the we also hear that Sean has solved 18 cases this year. And I thought that was an interesting way to think about it as far as like setting a standard for how many cases actually get solved. Now, we don't know what month it is
Yeah,
here,
that's true.
but we do know that Lassie has solved 9 in 2 weeks. So there is a very big
Oh,
difference. So if Lassie solved 9 in 2 weeks and Sean has done 18 in a year, there is a very big difference in
yeah.
how many cases the police department does versus Sean. Even
But
if Lassie
so,
is on a streak, that's still a lot of cases. That's half of what Sean does in just 2 weeks.
and interestingly, like, well, that puts into perspective, I guess, why
It'd be great if we knew
Sean,
what
well,
month it was.
it puts into perspective though why Sean is like so bummed about
Yeah, that could be
not,
true too. I didn't think about it quite like
because
that.
he's like,
Like Lassie is going
Lassie is
up to.
way outdoing me here, you
Yeah, that could
know.
be. Yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't think about that part. But I did think that was interesting to note.
Yeah, those are good little
Now,
tidbits.
also, so at this point, this is after that little scene with the psychologist. Um,
Yeah.
Sean has gone through this weird thing with the psychologist where he's like essentially trying to convince him that he's not delusional, he's not crazy.
Mhm.
He solved 18 cases, and um, he does like a psychic reading of the guy, figuring out that he's in
Mhm.
college, that he's nervous about money, that he has color blindness,
Colorblind.
and the psychologist was like believing him, like he's kind of in awe. And then Sean sees behind him through the door like a shadow that someone's at the door, and he does the knock at door right before they knock.
Mhm.
And if you look at the psychologist, his jaw is dropped, like he's in
Mhm.
awe, like he's like a fan now.
Yeah.
And yeah, and he's like supporting it. But we also learn in this scene, like there's a lot that happened in the scene.
Yeah.
But we also learn in this scene after Chief Vic comes in with Lassiter, she we hear from Henry saying like, "Hey, we're in the middle of this. Don't interrupt." And she's like, "It doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter anymore." And then Henry says, "It was your idea." So Chief Vic was the one that set up an intervention with a psychologist
They
for
already
Sean.
established that in the beginning of the scene, though.
No, they didn't
Yes,
say
they
it was the
did.
chief.
Yeah, Henry said Chief Vic sent this guy over.
No, no, no. He said that it was his friend from back on the force. Uh, I don't know. I don't remember that.
I think they established that earlier in
I
the
might have
scene,
missed it,
but
but I don't think
yeah.
so. I
All
don't
right,
know.
so they leave Henry's house and they're talking. They're going to uh the school where the paleontologist taught, and they are talking, and I love how Gus tells Sean he thinks they shouldn't rule out the possibility that there is an island out there somewhere where dinosaurs still exist.
Yeah, yeah, no, no. It was like there's oh, here it is. Yeah, it's there might be an island. We can't rule out the possibility that there might be an island somewhere in the Pacific where dinos
Uh-huh.
exist. Yeah,
And that's
yeah,
when Sean is like, is Jeff Goldblum there? Like
yeah,
it's
and
a
they
whole
have a
thing.
craving for Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah, yeah.
So
It's yeah.
reference to Jurassic Park.
Of course. And then we go into this school and discover like they prepare themselves for 24 hours of going through artifacts.
And like
And they
fossils
get
and
there and there was like 8 of them.
oh yeah, yeah, it could fit on
There
one
was it
table.
was such a disappointing amount of dinosaur artifacts at that university. And we
Hmm.
do find out there from this intern that the program was going to be ended. They were pulling the plug on it. And so then you kind of figure out, well, this guy was probably trying to do something to keep that program alive.
Yes, making some kind of a discovery to assist in keeping his job, you know,
And
open.
we also there at 15 minutes 26 seconds. The sort of theme throughout this episode is that Lassie and Jules are like right on their tail the whole time. Like he's feeling defeated because he like whatever he does and wherever Sean leads them,
Mhm.
Lassie and Jules are right there right after them. Like they're finding the same information as he is. And he
Yeah.
doesn't like that. So when they pull up, he says something about he says,
Like
oh
he
my gosh.
literally is on fire.
Yeah, he literally is on fire. So then after he called Jules out for using it wrong, I thought it
I
was
think
funny
he
that
was
he used
mocking
it
it though.
wrong.
I
Yeah,
think he
I
was
know, I
mocking
think
it
so
though.
too, but I
Mhm.
thought it was a funny playback later
Oh yeah,
about
like a
what had
callback.
happened earlier. Yeah, I
Yeah.
liked that.
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, so 16 minutes and 3 seconds, they have now made their way to the victim's house. And, looking around, the cops have beat them there. Not Lassie and Jules, but the regular police officers have beat them there. And Sean's looking around at where can we go that they're not. And they go to the garage. And I love how, like, they can't get in. There's a code necessary. Okay, so I thought it was awesome how he had Gus crack the code, and Gus was excited to crack the code. He
Well, he
was,
was enticing him with it because
oh
in
yeah,
the beginning he was like, "We really shouldn't pick this lock. We're gonna have to find somebody who can do this. We're
yeah,
gonna have to wait for the police to get here and check this
uh-huh.
out." And so
Gus is
he was
like,
baiting him.
"Hold my beer."
Hmm. Yeah, and he does this little dance thing where he walks up and he like puts his
Uh-huh.
hand up against the thing to feel it, to just like feel it and connect with it. And
He makes the
Sean,
Michael Jackson noises.
huh? And Sean calls him the lock whisperer. Like, what are you channeling at Michael Jackson?
Uh-huh. That was
Hmm.
good. But he got
But
in. He
yeah,
got in.
so here's the thing with that.
Mhm.
So he gets in, but you
Yeah.
can't pick an electronic lock like that. It was too much. It's too much. You can't pick an electronic lock like that. You can't just press the buttons and guess. He literally guessed every single one in a row. How do you do that? That doesn't work. So I do have to call that
Well,
out.
okay. All right, but you have to realize that they were just giving a nod to Gus's love for
They could have used
safes
a
and lock
regular tumbler
picking
lock
and
and he could with like a dial on it
no,
that he
it
could have like
wouldn't,
actually
but they
broken into.
wouldn't have been able to do that because first of all, who has a lock like that on a door?
Most people.
No.
It's a shed. You just put like the little latch on it
But
with a
they
little
were
loop.
setting up for what was to come after Lassie and Jules got there, and Gus fed him the numbers to get in to the garage. That's what they needed to lay that
You could have
groundwork.
done that with a turning lock,
No,
with a
no,
regular padlock. Yeah. Hmm.
I disagree. I disagree
Hmm.
there. I don't like that. I like the digital. Look, sometimes you just
Well,
have to recognize that it's a TV show, okay?
but
Ugh,
nonetheless, they get in there. They
they
see
do.
that the extensive amount of fossils and bones in there, as well
Mhm.
as the tools that he has.
Right.
It's like 10 times better than the archaeological classes, setup. And
Right, the
they get out of
university's
there
got
once they
nothing on this
see.
guy.
Mhm, and once they see that Jules and Lassiter pulled up, they get out of there and close the door back up and lock it again. And then Sean pretends to, divine the number combination by
By
having
having
Gus
Gus feed
pass
him
him the
to him.
numbers. And I thought
Yes.
it was kind of funny here is Sean is the one who pulls it out because Lassie comes up and he's like, "We're gonna have to get somebody who can get into this lock." And Sean's like, "No worries, somebody here can already do that. Me." And then you see
That's
Gus,
his face.
but no, but he's a little bit shocked. But then he goes to cocky, and he does this
Yeah.
thing where he kind of looks sideways and kind of smiles a little bit because he knows that Sean is gonna have to ask him. He
Uh-huh.
knows that Sean's gonna have to ask him for help.
Yeah.
And
He likes
he's
that.
cocky about that. He does that little half smile where he
Uh-huh.
like touches his nose a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think that was a funny scene that we get to see, like a little like Gus in the background. You kind of have to look at it because normally you'd be looking at Sean and Lassiter at this point. But yeah, if you.
Well, it's a good way to highlight too how much Gus is needed, you
Mhm,
know? It's
exactly,
not
yeah.
Sean could not do everything without Gus. It's like it's a duo.
Mhm, and
Um
Sean has to give up his a baseball card that Gus wants for him to give him the
uh-huh.
combination.
Sean makes a couple of good finds. Like first one is the grid chart. He looks at this thing. They keep calling it bad tic-tac-toe, whatever. Don't really know what it is yet. And also, Sean notices all of these fruit crates from a fruit stand in Ojai. And So that's their next destination. They head to the fruit stand in Ojai and they find out where the victim was going every night. So um they're heading that way. They keep passing these no trespassing signs, which maybe should have stopped them from going on the property, but it's Sean and Gus. They're gonna go. So they discover the land after passing through all of
Mhm.
these. They find this entry point and they start seeing all these mounds of dirt everywhere. And it looks like somebody's been digging holes. And I really, really love this in this episode, this nod to a previous Dule Hill project. So, and you know what I meant to do was I wanted
Mhm.
to look at the year that Holes came out and see how 2003. Thank you. I need to know this. Okay.
2003.
So, yeah.
Mhm. 2003, fun fact about this, it had a $20 million budget, and
Mm.
it
It was a
only made
great
71
movie,
million,
and
which I
I
was shocked by
loved,
because it was a
loved, loved
really
and
good
now I
movie.
do wish they had worked the saying into this episode of, "I can fix that." Like, they could have done that at some point because that was so.
I
No!
get it, but do you think it might have been too on the nose? They do it in a future
Well,
episode.
I
They do
think
it in a
they
future
really
episode.
should
He
have
does
done it
say, "I can
here.
fix that,"
Something should have happened to the
in the
snow or
Psych
to
universe.
the leaf blower or something, and he should have said, "I can fix that." Like, something should have happened here. But I don't know. It was a good nod, and they start talking about the movie, and, Sean references that movie, and with Sigourney Weaver, and yeah, and then Gus is like, "Alien?"
The movie with Sigourney Weaver
And
and
he's like, "Oh," and then he's like, "No," and Joy was running
Alien
around, and
2?
he's like, "Oh,
Alien Resurrection.
Anaconda," and he does it all with a straight face, and I
Oh,
don't know how he
crazy.
did it all with a straight face, but it was cute. Yeah.
He's like, "No, there was some holes in Shia LaBeouf. There was
Yeah,
holes in Shia
it
LaBeouf?"
was a great nod. It was a great nod to that,
No, forget
but
it, and then he just keeps
still
guessing, yeah.
I'm
Mhm.
saying they should have put, "I
Yeah,
can fix
I
that,"
like that. That
in
was a
there,
funny
but
little
anyway.
bit.
Okay, so they're here, someone starts shooting at them, and Gus starts screaming and running to the car.
But
Yeah.
this time they toughen up though. They get to the car and they jump in, and Gus goes like full on commando, and he
Yeah,
is
not even
backing
looking.
out in the blueberry at full speed, backwards down the road. He's ducked down. Yeah, he's ducked down to where he can just barely see over the back of the car. And he's like going back and forth, trying to keep it straight as he's going backwards. He spins the car around and then he takes off again.
Crouching down for safety.
I'm keeping my head down.
'Cause better if they ran into something. I mean, oh my gosh.
But it was a great scene.
Okay,
It was
and
really
then they go
funny.
past the no
Mhm.
the trespassers will be shot sign. He's like, "Did you see that before, Sean?"
Yep.
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh,
That's
yeah, that did say
that's
that."
good.
At 25:40, we have the breakdown. Essentially, the guys go back to Chief Vic to tell them what they found and what Sean's divined, and Lassiter and Juliet are in there, and they are just cutting Sean down. Every time he
Mhm.
says something, they're like, "Yeah, we found that yesterday. Catch up." And it ends with them on a high note where they have the next lead, and Sean didn't have it, and Lassiter and Juliet fist bump. He takes they take Sean and Gus's thing, and Sean
Mhm.
is just distraught. He drops his mouth and he's like, like it just ends with him being like, "What just happened here?" And I thought that was obviously a funny scene. But I do think that it's interesting here. Whenever Juliet and Lassiter do their fist bump, it looks like McNabb photobombs the scene. He leans forward like he was sitting back with like a straight face, and then he leans forward and smiles in between them for just a split second.
It's
Like,
like
he photobombs it. He
they
totally.
just did it again, they just did it again. He's all happy, but it does look like a photobomb, it's so cute.
It I feel like McNabb I feel like Sage photobombed it.
It he may have. He may have.
When I saw it, because I paused it trying to get a good picture of them, bumping
Yeah.
fists, and it was one of those accidental finds, and I'm like, is that McNabb? And I'm like, is he doing that the whole time? And I rewound it, and no, he literally goes from like straight face to like leaning forward, smiling. And then this is where the scene cuts out, is right here before their fist touch when he's like this,
Okay.
which is why I think that he's photobombing.
Okay. Yeah, I gotcha.
Because yeah, the scene cuts out here,
Well,
but I do think it's funny.
right
Hmm.
after that, it seems to everyone else that Lassie and Jules have solved the case and are, pinning it on the grad student and Sean and Gus knows that more is going on. So they go to Henry's house to borrow digging tools. And
Hmm.
they head back to the farm in Ojai because Sean has remembered the grid chart in the victim's garage. And he goes to where he saw the O on the chart. And
Hmm.
they begin to dig. And Sean very clearly is setting out to make Gus dig this hole.
Yeah, yeah. Sean is sleeping on the side
Uh-huh.
while Gus is in the hole digging.
Dude, did you
Now
see?
there is
Wait,
something I find weird here.
hold on first. When he threw the shovel on him, that looked like it hurt.
Yes, it did. Yeah, it definitely looked like it
That
hurt.
had to
It
hurt.
felt like the clang was real.
Yes.
Yeah, so whoever edited that did a good job, or they used a real shovel and it had some
Yeah.
impact. But I'm curious about the scene. So
Okay.
Gus is in the hole digging. The hole is really only big enough for two people to like stand next to each other in. But when you're digging, there's not that much room in it. So Gus is probably like 3 feet down, and he like looks over or he like yells over to Sean, "How are you coming on your side?" What side? I don't understand what side
Yeah.
because there's no other holes nearby. It's
Maybe
just
he
this one.
thought he was digging another hole next to him.
But this one, if you look at the grid though, this is the only one in that grid
I
that had a
right,
circle.
but I don't know. I'm just trying to help justify it. I'm just trying to
And I'm
help just
poking holes
I
in it.
mean,
It's just
hold
part of
I
our
see what you
job,
did there. I
poking
see what you
holes.
did there. I
Hmm.
see. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Well,
But so yeah, I did want to point that out. I also wanted to point out that Sean brings a leaf blower to dig holes.
okay. You're gonna talk about what I was gonna talk about too.
Oh, did I
Because
skip ahead
no,
too
no, no,
far?
no, no, you didn't. It's exactly the right time.
Okay, okay.
So I thought it was interesting that he would have thought it was a good idea to blow a bunch of dirt around in a hole that he's standing in.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah,
Because this is
yeah.
like how you create like a dust storm of dirt. I mean, like that
Hmm.
is way too much power when you're
Hmm.
standing in the hole you're aiming it at.
Okay, I did skip a little
Yeah.
bit ahead here because yeah, I also notated that whenever they were later on after they both get in and dig, they get down to the layer where the dinosaur like fossil
Yeah.
is, and Gus is down there with like his little brush, like
Yeah.
delicately moving things off, and he's got like his good technique, and Sean is just there with his hand like pulling dirt off of it, and I thought that was another one of those things that highlighted like a Gus like skill or
Yeah.
interest. Aside from lock picking, he's also like he's done research on
Yeah,
how to
and
like dig up fossils.
he even says, "This has already been, like" I don't even know what he says,
Oh, like
"It's already been
cleaned and
cleaned and
processed,
processed."
like stuff
Right,
you
right,
would
right.
normally do in a
Like,
lab.
how would he know that? Because it was covered with dirt yet again. Like, he
Mhm.
was, like, into it, you know? You could tell he has studied
Right.
this.
Like rocks chipped
Yeah.
away, like that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so okay, so excitingly enough here, they use the thing, and at the end of that scene, Gus is like, "I just discovered a dinosaur." Like, he is so excited. And they go back
Mhm.
to the psych office, and they're laying on the floor in exhaustion. And huge continuity error here. Well, maybe it's not continuity. It's more of a just an error.
Continuity.
So their clothes are perfectly clean. They have just stood in a hole using a leaf blower, circulating
Yeah, they were
dirt
crawling around
everywhere.
too.
They are dirty. They get back to the office and their clothes are perfectly clean. That was disappointing to me.
I didn't notice that. I didn't even
It
notice
was
it.
disappointing to me. It made me kind of mad. I was like, that is not real. I mean, they did not stop at the laundromat and launder all their clothes on the way back to the office. They should not have
Mhm.
been that clean. There's no way. But anyway, okay.
At our next scene,
Mhm,
though, we're about 32 minutes
mhm.
in, and they go back to the farm to actually talk to the farmer this time, not to sneak around. And as they approach, Sean is like, I'm gonna do Lenny from Mice and Men, and Gus tells him no, and that he's gonna like give him like a burn on his arm, and he's like, keep it up if your ulna feels, or take a shot if your ulna feels safe. And Sean's like, Is the ulna in your forearm? Are you sure? It sounds like something in your leg," or he says something like that. I did look it up to confirm. It is the outermost bone in your forearm.
And didn't
So
he
Gus was
say,
right.
"Where's the uvula?" The uvula, that little hangy thing in the back of your throat. Yeah,
hmm
anyway.
But they talk to the farmer, and of course he blows them off. It's like Deacon Walker Farm, and
Mhm,
they ask him about who's Deacon and that kind of thing. And when they leave, they see holes behind the house and a bulldozer, which they know was used to fill in the hole where the victim died. Whenever they found it, that Gus made that comment about
mhm,
like no self-respecting paleontologist would ever use such an indelicate tool.
mhm,
So that catches their interest. And as they're leaving, or as they're heading back to the car to actually leave, Henry calls and tells Sean that he shouldn't be at the farm. He remembers from when he was on the force that the farm was involved in a missing persons. The girlfriend of the farmer's partner, the deacon, went missing, and the farmer, this guy Walker, always said that he just left, but Henry always felt weird about it.
well, he said they never could
So
find him.
right, they couldn't find him anywhere.
Mhm,
So Henry was worried about Sean being in danger, and he called him and let him know.
mhm. So we're at 35 minutes, 21 seconds now. Uh, Lassie and Chief Vic are in the chief's office and they're talking about the case. And Lassie's feeling like everything is so circumstantial against this kid, this intern or whatever, that they don't really have enough solid evidence there. And Jules comes in and tells them that, well, Sean's on the phone, and Sean claims that in 10 minutes, he can solve the case, nab the killer, close an additional unsolved murder, and unearth a dinosaur. And Chief
Mhm.
Vic is like, well, I'm interested. And they go to Ojai as well.
When they're there, we're about 36 minutes in now. Jules and Lassiter. So Sean is doing his breakdown. They're at the hole where the guys died, and it's Sean and Gus and Juliet and Lassiter and the chief. And Sean is doing his breakdown where he's accusing the farmer of murdering his partner, and or I'm sorry, of murdering the victim, the primary victim here, the paleontologist. And at this scene, you kind of see Lassiter and Juliet like come around from behind the guy and kind of like surround him. And Juliet and Lassiter are both wearing matching uniforms. Like they're both wearing
Like the
like
suits.
suits,
Well, and
and the same color and everything.
also in this scene, during this time, Henry has not arrived on the scene yet, but you can see him in Becca Shawn. So it was a little bit of a continuity
What?
thing. You can
I
see
did not see
Henry
that.
in Becca Shawn. It was at 13 or 36 minutes, 30 seconds. Sean is talking to
Didn't
the
see that.
farmer, and you can see Henry in back of him.
Huh.
So, and then but he's not really there yet. He hasn't arrived there yet. So interesting. Yeah.
Interesting. At 38
Hmm.
minutes, we have our essentially like our wrap up here where Sean is explaining what happens. And we find out that the victim discovered a dinosaur here and wanted to dig, but the farmer said no. The question is why? Because as Gus mentioned previously, that's worth millions to a landowner, having like a big dig like this. And we find out that Farmer Walker said no because like 20 years ago, he killed his partner, Deacon, and buried him somewhere on the farm, but the problem is he doesn't remember where he buried him, so he doesn't want people just coming in and digging up everywhere.
Hmm.
When the victim made a big discovery, the farmer killed him to cover it up without attracting other people digging. The victim got hit and fell into the hole, landing on the dinosaur's teeth, and that's how it ended.
Hmm.
That's what happened. And the farmer took the body out, dropped it in the ocean to get rid of the evidence and to get rid of any like DNA, and he filled that hole in because that was also the only hole that was filled in with a bulldozer. So that's why they knew it was that one where it
Right.
occurred. Although my issue with this is Who forgets where you buried somebody that you murdered?
Okay, but
That's
all right. Well, I
how
mean,
many people has he murdered that he
I think
forgets
it
where he
would
buried
depend
them?
on the circumstances, though, and how
I feel
many
like you would every
changes.
time you
Yeah,
saw
but
it.
you know what? Changes can happen to land a little bit over time too. And if it was that many years ago, and he's an old guy, maybe he just didn't remember. And then he knew,
I
I mean,
I feel like murdering somebody is a very niche situation, and
yeah,
you
I
might
mean, I get
remember
that.
where it
I get
occurred.
that. But he's old. I don't know. You just don't know.
I guess, and it is what it is. But as he's doing his wrap up, Juliet also tells Lassie that she's worried about his streak as Sean finishes, telling everybody what
Mhm.
happened.
So they arrest the old guy, the farmer, and they now they're like, now we're gonna dig up this dinosaur. And Gus is like, I'm not digging it. You just want me to dig the hole again. He's like, well, that's fine. I'll claim credit for this. And Gus is not having that. And he's like,
Hmm.
whoever discovers it gets to name it. And Sean's like, I'm gonna name it I'm gonna name it Zippy or Chompy. Zippy the dinosaur.
See, that's a funny scene watching them fight over who gets to name
Uh-huh.
it. But I think that this is something that needs to be pointed out.
What?
They didn't discover this
I
dinosaur.
know that the
The
guy did it.
victim died discovering the dinosaur,
Yes,
and they take it.
they do. Because
They
it's what
take it
Gus
because we see
listen,
this.
okay, so this is like a Gus's dream. This is like his secret dream to have some sort of discovery like this. So
Hmm.
of course he's gonna run with it. He's like, I found it here under the dirt. I'm gonna claim it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But the other guy already processed it and everything.
Yeah.
I don't think that was very
I don't
fair.
either. I
But
agree with you.
in regards to what you were saying, about Zippy the
Uh-huh.
dinosaur, he does say whenever they're fighting over the shovel, I say I'm going to name it Zippy, and it's going to say Zippy the dinosaur, discovered by psychic paleo sleuth Sean Spencer. Psychic paleo sleuth. That just has such a good ring to it.
And if I'm not
Mm,
mistaken, they do reference this in a future episode.
they do.
Yes.
Yeah, the museum
So
episode.
keep looking out for that. The Mummy. The Mummy. It was an
However,
episode.
I do have some other notes
Okay, go
here.
ahead.
A couple at the
Yeah, go
end.
ahead.
At 40 minutes and 5 seconds in, we're back at the psych office. This is after everything's wrapped up, and Lassiter is feeling kind of down on himself. And
Yes.
he's talking to O'Hara, and it's just them two by themselves. And he's like, I'm never going to suspect an extinct creature. How can I compete with that?
Mhm.
Like, O'Hara, I'm physically incapable of pointing a finger at a dragon, a leprechaun, or the Loch Ness monster. I quit. I'm gonna donate my badge to charity. It's done. And like it's this really funny scene because it's so true.
Yeah.
It's so like real and deep.
Uh-huh.
Like he's like, I just can't.
He's
I'm
so
I'm never gonna
defeated.
do that.
He's
I'm not
sad.
that crazy
Yeah.
that I'm going to suspect a dinosaur killed somebody,
Right.
in 2007. Like,
He's basically just
and I thought that was
owning.
a really good
Well, he's
scene
owning
because he was
that he was
right, but he's
closed-minded
sharing
to
it.
what really happened.
Right.
Yeah.
He's bound by logic a little too
Yeah.
much for different scenarios. And I think it's cool that he's sharing that, like he's comfortable enough with Juliet for them to have like this really nice moment
Which gets
where
which
Juliet
gets
is really sweet to him.
this it gets validated too because she's like, "Do you want a hug?" And he's like, "No, what
Hmm.
do you think I am?" And then he comes back and takes the hug.
He's like, yeah, I'll
It
take the hug.
was so cute. It's like a new dynamic. See, season 2 rocks.
Yep. Yep. And we also find out that Jules is a like baseball fan.
Oh yeah, she knows the
Like I don't want
statistics.
to necessarily I don't know if I want to say necessarily hardcore. I don't know how much it comes up throughout the rest of the show, but she does have like random statistics and knows player names and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
she is a baseball fan, which is kind of interesting.
Interesting. Yes.
But
Okay.
there is one last scene here.
Okay. Oh yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah.
I think you have notes on it.
Yeah, so at 41 minutes, they are back at Henry's house. And this time they got the shrink to come back for Henry, which makes him like
Well, they didn't know that.
well,
Yeah,
yeah,
he
yeah,
didn't know
yeah.
that.
Henry didn't
Henry
know
thought
that.
the shrink was coming back for Sean.
Right.
Sean gets there, and then they flip it on
Yeah.
him,
And Henry is
and Henry is
mad. He's
upset.
like, "Get
Mhm.
out." I mean, he like just sends him flying out of the house. It was a good
And
episode.
a funny thing at
Mhm.
the end is when they all leave and he closes the door behind it, he, like, bends over and, like, turns the lock on the door too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just like, "Stay out."
Get out, don't come
Mhm.
back. Okay, so Matt, what are your thoughts about this episode? How many pineapples do you give this?
I loved it. I'm gonna give it 4 pineapples. I don't think it's 5 pineapple worthy. I don't think it was as good as last episode. Last episode, American Duos, I gave it 5, but I really did enjoy this one. This one I have seen a lot. So there were things that I acknowledge are funny, but they don't always make me laugh out loud anymore because I've seen like this season, I've seen
Yeah.
it so much, or this specific episode a lot. But I do really love this episode. I think there's a lot of great scenes in it. There's a lot of references, and we also get these great moments with Juliet and Lassiter, who are kind of bonding over Lassiter's success,
Mhm.
and we also get to see a little bit of Lassiter when he's on top because that's one thing we kind of skipped over. But when in the beginning, when we first see his streak, he does this thing, and this happens
Mhm.
later on too, where he's very humble but also like cocky at
Yeah.
the same
Yeah.
time. Where he's like, I'm just doing what any cop would do. Get back to work, people. Come on, let's get back to
Mhm.
work. Let's get back at it." But he's got this like nuanced way of being cocky and humble
Yeah,
at the
because
same
he's
time,
soaking it in. He's soaking in all the
and
praise.
it's cool character
Yes.
development. It's very like nuanced character
Mhm.
development. It's not in your face. So I think that is that's a part of the reason that I enjoy this episode so much. So
Mhm.
4 pineapples for me. What about you?
Oh, this one's 5.
Could have called it. I
This
could have
one is
called it.
5. This one is 5 for sure. This is an episode I am never gonna pass this up if it's on. I'm gonna watch this. This is
And that's
funny.
also what a 4-star
Yeah,
means.
no, I'm sorry, but this is one of my favorites. I don't why am I apologizing? I really love this episode. Um I love this episode. This episode from start to finish was
Oh god.
funny from
Oh
the
man.
very beginning to the very end. There were a lot of great scenes in it. It had a good storyline that you didn't know right away. Like it
Mhm.
was a good
There was a twist.
mystery, and it also well, okay, so aside from just the case aspect of it, it was a good episode in terms of feelings. Like you got to
Mhm.
see, that Sean really like he like needs this. He needs to be solving cases. This is not just like
Yeah.
something he wants to do for money. He needs it for himself.
But do you think he needs the attention? Like being like the center of the
No,
attention,
I
being
think
like
he
the best
just
at it?
needs to do
Because he
it.
didn't like how Lassie was being the best now. Lassie was known as the best.
I think he likes feeling needed. I think he likes that like when they
Okay.
need his help. I don't necessarily think that he needs it for the praise aspect of it. I think he needs it because he wants to feel needed. So,
Mhm.
I mean, it's like the only thing in his life. It's what he's got.
Okay.
So I think that's where that comes from. And I also think it was a good episode in terms of camaraderie between Jules and Lassie. I think it
Mhm.
was a good episode in terms of like moving forward after this, maybe the chief and Lassie will be a little bit more open to what Sean says, even if he's not down some straight and narrow path about something. They'll go, crap, he was right about the dinosaur. We may as well listen to him now. Like it was sort of
Right.
setting a precedent that even though his ideas may be far fetched, we probably should at least
Almost like a
consider it.
riddle. Like just look at it another
Right.
way. It
Exactly.
wasn't a living dinosaur, but it was dinosaur bones
Exactly.
or and he actually had a good point as well where he could tie it to like a box of dino bites or something like cereal,
Hmm.
or he could place like a toy dinosaur somewhere in the victim's house and say like, oh, that's why I was thinking dinosaur.
Right.
So there's multiple
Right.
ways to think about it and multiple ways that he could twist it to have crazy
Mhm.
things in the future but have them not be so
Yep.
crazy.
I just definitely think that there was a lot going on here. And you also
Yeah.
got to see a lot of concern from Henry for Sean because he
Yeah.
was freaked out that something was gonna happen to him, that he was gonna get shot at that farm. Like,
Mhm. And he didn't even want him to take his
yeah,
tools. Yeah.
yeah, like, he was,
Mhm.
like, scared of what was gonna happen to Sean. So it was really nice to
Yeah.
see that as well. There was a lot of good character stuff. Don't sit there
So
and look,
speaking
don't
of
wait, wait,
all
wait.
these good
Don't sit
moments,
there and rethink your 4 pineapple rating after
no,
I
I'm not.
clearly
I'm
laid
not.
out why it
No,
should
no,
be
no.
5. I'm just
I'm
saying.
good with
I'm just
4. I'm
saying,
good with
look.
4. But speaking of all these good
Mhm.
moments, this is a good segue for our notable points.
Oh,
Our
yeah,
all yeah
yeah.
moment. What do you got? What's your
Okay,
all yeah
my
moment?
"aw, yeah" moment was at the morgue.
Oh
That's
yeah.
right. When you see him going down the hallway with the dinosaur head just bopping along, it was great. That's a good scene for me. I was like, yes, yes, that's this episode. This episode is gonna be crazy, like seeing a dinosaur head outside of a morgue. That's what you're thinking. Did you have one?
My all yeah moment is actually when it's after the intervention scene, and it's when Chief Fix walks in, and her
Oh,
delivery of he was a paleontologist,
yes.
and she just has this very like definitive like smile, and her delivery of it was so good, and every nobody was expecting it. Lassiter is upset, and he's bummed that Sean was right, and again for calling out something so ridiculous that he says he was killed by a dinosaur and the dude's a dinosaur hunter. Like, yeah, I thought that was really
Yeah.
great. I love that part. I thought that was definitely my all yeah moment because it validated him, it shocked everybody, and her delivery was really great.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, okay, I will give you that. That's a good one. It's a good one. Did you have a wait for it moment?
um i
Wait for
i
it.
I guess kind of. I mean, you kind of knew that they were gonna find, the dinosaur thing,
Mhm,
but maybe when they had the leaf blower scene, maybe that could have been a wait for it. I didn't really have a
mhm.
definitive wait for it though.
Oh, I had like 3.
Okay, what do you got? What do you got?
Well,
Maybe I'll change my
yeah,
mind.
well, you should, but, okay. So at the farm, 27 minutes, 20 seconds, when Sean remembers the grid chart in the victim's garage, it, like, comes to him like, "This is the grid. This is what we're talking about." And he
Okay,
realizes what it was because back at the garage, he just thought it was like, tic-tac-toe. They called it drawings or doodles or whatever, and
making
he
the
made
connection.
that connection
Yeah.
that that's what I'm looking at here. Um,
Mhm.
Also, when when they start running and screaming to get to the car, to me, that was just too funny not to be wait for it. It was like, will they make it? It was fun. Um, and
Mhm.
also when Jules comes in and says Sean claims that in 10 minutes he can solve the case and have the killer close an additional unsolved murder and unearth a dinosaur. So yeah, those are my moments.
I think that last one. If I had to take one of yours, I'd probably take that last one.
Mhm,
He claims he can solve the case. Yeah, do the whole
yeah,
bunch. Yeah,
I was like,
that's
wait
probably a
for
pretty
it.
good one. Especially
Mhm.
if you didn't know the resolution to the case yet,
Right.
then that adds even more to it. Like I said, I've seen this one a lot because it was one of my favorites.
I
So yeah,
believe that your overwatching the episode has taken away from some of your appreciation of it.
it's possible, but again, like I'm keeping my fives close to the vest. I
Oh,
mean, there's
really?
8 seasons of the show.
Yeah.
There's like I don't know. There's over 100 episodes.
Yeah, but out of
Honestly,
120
honestly, if I'm
episodes.
thinking about it, I would love to have probably less than 20 as five
Okay, but
stars
I'm
or
gonna
five
tell you that
pineapples.
the majority of my 5 pineapples are coming from season 2 because it is my favorite
There's definitely gonna
season.
season 2 is definitely gonna be,
It's
as
loaded
far
with
as the
them.
5 pineapple ratings, it's gonna be a high one.
Yeah.
It might even be the
Yeah.
highest, but there are lots of other 5 stars that I can think of. So, I don't know, I gotta play it, you can't just give everything 5. You can't
I'm
give
not
everything
giving
5.
everything 5, Matt,
You gotta be stingy
but
with the 5s, okay?
I think
Just
this
like
was
you
a
gotta be
5.
stingy with the 1s.
Yeah, this was a 5. This
That's
was a
the thing.
5. Tell
Okay.
me, did
Well, you
you
do
get a
you.
Henry
You do you.
lesson from this one?
I don't think
I
so.
didn't either, which is really
Henry's
odd.
very negative.
Yeah, it was really odd.
I know feelings. I know feelings.
All right.
That's Henry Sessions.
We definitely had some 80s guest stars references here.
Even I had a
And I'm
couple.
proud of you for that. But let's get okay. So we'll
Although I
start with
think that
mine.
you probably have some of mine.
Well, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. So
All right, so
first
Barb,
reference.
yeah, you lead us.
Okay. All right. So first reference, Jeff Goldblum. He was an accomplished actor, Oscar nominated, and his career started in 1974. He did appear in many 80s hits like The Big Chill in 1983 and The Fly. I can remember being in school when The Fly was out and everybody was talking about it. I still have never seen it, but everybody was talking about it. And that was in 1986. And then he went on to star in Jurassic Park in 1993 and Independence Day with Will Smith in 1996. So a lot of people know him from those two. And I added those because of the Jurassic Park reference here, because, I know it was 90s.
Hmm.
Sigourney Weaver, a three-time Oscar-nominated actress, began her career in 1970 and is known for starring in the Aliens series. So there was an Alien in 1979, Aliens in 1986, and Aliens 3 or Alien 3 in 1992. She appeared in Ghostbusters in 1983, Gorillas in the Mist in 1988, and Working Girl also in 1988. Many movies since, including the referenced movie Holes here, which also co-starred Julie Hill. And she is going to be seen in the new Ghostbusters that has just come out this year. And she'll be reprising her role as Dana Barrett. And also, she's going to be in the upcoming Avatar sequels 2 through 5. Yes, you heard me right, 2 through 5. Still have never seen Avatar, but I mean, that was a lot to make at once. They're all,
You've seen
yeah,
Pocahontas, right?
well, they're all of these movies are in post-production, so they have literally shot them all already.
That's insane.
Well, can you
That's so
imagine if you
crazy.
have the sets and you have everything there? Do it all at once because that's expensive. So anyway, yeah, so that was it. But she was nominated for Oscars for Aliens, Gorillas in the Mist, and Working Girl, which were all of her big, movies. They were all big movies in the 80s. So John Voight is also referenced here. He is the father of Angelina Jolie. He also starred in Holes and is an Oscar winner for a movie called Coming Home in 1978. In the 80s, which oddly enough, the 80s was his least busy decade. In the 90s, though, he killed it in movies like Mission Impossible, Varsity Blues, Enemy of the State, and The Rainmaker, and then went on to star with Nicolas Cage in the National Treasure movies as well. So Gorillas in the Mist was referenced. That was a 1988 hit movie starring Sigourney Weaver about Diane Fossey, who studied African gorillas. And then they also referenced Of Mice and Men. So that was a classic novella written by John Steinbeck. And it was written in 1937. But the reason that I referenced here is because they paid so much attention to it in this episode. And
Hmm.
also, when I was in school in the 80s, that was a required book to read in some English classes. So I remember friends of mine reading that book. I never read it, but friends of mine did. And it was made into several TV movies or big screen movies. And one of those was in 1981. It was a made for TV movie that starred Randy Quaid and Robert Blake. And that's all I got, Matt, but I did add a note to one of yours. What do you got?
Okay. Well, for mine, I have a lot less detail, but I did get some. I did at least point them
Yeah,
out. So,
listen, I don't
at
want
11 minutes
anyone
30 seconds.
anyone thinking that I didn't get all the information, so.
Mhm. At 11 minutes 30 seconds, we have the Terrence Trent D'Arby reference. And Terrence Trent D'Arby had his real name was Sonata Francisco Maitreya, if I
Francesco.
said that right.
No, Sonata
Um,
Francesco Maitreya.
I've heard it both ways. Who started his career with the stage name of Terrence Trent D'Arby, is an American singer and songwriter who came to fame with his debut studio album, introducing the hard line according to Terrence Trent
Long
D'Arby.
enough album title,
And
right?
Right, and it was in 1987.
Yeah, so
Um,
the what I added to yours was that "Wishing Well" was the name of the song that I hated that song. And in 1987,
Never heard
it
it.
was played it's okay. You're gonna be okay if you've
Mhm,
never heard that. It was played to death on the radio. Like, it was, like, nonstop. It was I hated that song. Sorry. I had to add that to it because anyway.
mhm. Well, my next one was at 13 minutes 38 seconds, and it's the reference to Jurassic Park. He said the island in the Pacific with dinos on it, and have a taste for Jeff Goldblum, which you covered. At 14 minutes 18 seconds, when they're in the fossil room, he says that he has a shoebox full of trilobites on the top shelf. Sean thinks that he says Cinnabites because he says you have Pinhead, Chatterbox, Surgeon, and Stitch up on a box on the top shelf, and Gus corrects him as it says, Sean, those are Cinnabites, not trilobites. Trilobites are fish fossils. So, Cinnabites are a reference to Hellraiser, and that was made in 1987 as well.
Huh.
September 18th is when it released, and that's the Cinnabites are a bunch of essentially like demons from hell that are released, and Pinhead, Chatterbox, Surgeon, Stitch are some of the more popular ones that were in the movies. I'm not a big fan of like slasher type horror movies, so they're not really my thing, but I do recognize them and know who they
Well,
are.
and James Roday Rodriguez
And
loves them. He loves horror movies.
oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
I think I've heard that. Yeah. And let's see, 2205 Holes in Shia LaBeouf. Holes came out. I already kind of talked about this
Mhm.
before. Came out in 2003, so it's not an 80s reference, but it is a reference to a pop culture
Yes,
event.
absolutely.
So those are mine.
And where's the pineapple?
We did already mention that. 10 minutes 33 seconds. It's next to the sink in Henry's kitchen.
Perfect. And silly
We didn't really have a Gus nickname.
no, but we
We
have
did
the
have a
Gus,
don't be a.
"Don't be a giant snapping turtle."
We did. Not the same thing as the Gus
I
nickname, though.
know, but it was
So
so
we gotta keep
cute.
those different. I have different lists, okay? We gotta keep those
Okay,
different.
well, alright, so but one of my favorite quotes I have 2 favorite quotes from this episode. One was, "Gus, don't be a giant snapping turtle," and the other one was when, Jules says okay, it was when Jules is, in Chief Vic's office and says, "Sean claims that in 10 minutes he can solve the case, nab the killer, close an additional unsolved murder, and unearth a dinosaur."
Mine is probably going to be mine's also kind of a tie to. I'm leaning more towards Lassiter's, but Sean's is interesting enough. The Lassiter one where he says, I'm never gonna suspect an extinct creature. How can I compete with that? O'Hara, I am physically incapable of pointing a finger at a dragon, a leprechaun, or the Loch Ness monster.
That's a good
I
one.
thought that was a really funny and strangely accurate
That is a
statement.
good one.
And then also the other one that I liked was Zippy the dinosaur, discovered by psychic paleo sleuth Sean Spencer.
I love it.
I thought that was a funny line as
That
well.
was it. Yours were very good. Those were good. How does this
Mm,
episode hold up over time for you?
great. I don't think there was really anything that stood out as like heavily repeated or
Mhm.
anything like that. I thought this was actually kind of a very unique episode. At least in the shows I watched, I don't think I've really seen this
Yeah.
theme used
It
before.
seems like it
So
would
yeah, it was
deserve
great.
5 pineapples. Yeah.
Not
Oh,
comparatively. Not comparatively.
comparatively, absolutely. Yeah, I agree that it did hold up well over time. I
Mhm.
think there was nothing in this episode that dated it to the point that was like, you know what I mean? It was just good. It was good. All right, guys, on the next episode, we will be discussing season 2, episode 3, called Psy versus Psy.
Don't forget to check us out on our Facebook group. We know you know a podcast about psych. If you are watching this on either YouTube or on through our Buzzsprout link, it'll be down in the description. So check that out on there. Leave a comment. Check in on the polls that we do for episode reviews.
You can also find us on Instagram at the Psych Podcast.
And on YouTube now,
Woohoo!
the Psych Podcast. If you search that in the bar, it'll come up. I think that's the first thing. If you do, we know you know. It's a little more difficult since we just started on there,
Mhm.
but hopefully we can get to 100 subscribers real fast. That way we can get like a custom link and everything. So go on there and subscribe.
Yeah, please subscribe. And then you can also contact us at our Gmail address, which is thepsychpodcast@gmail.com. That was a fun episode, Matt.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
I'm very excited that we're back in here. Next week's episode is going to be a little bit different. You and I both have similar views on this episode,
It's
but we need to watch it again, break it down, and we'll pick out the details that we have
yeah.
feelings about.
And just
All
as a
right.
teaser, probably not a 5 pineapple episode, just saying. But but we hope you'll come back. But we
As if it was even close.
but we
Uh,
will hopefully see you guys again next week. Have a great week. Thanks for joining us.
have a good day, guys. Bye.